How's it going? Today we're going to teach you how to do the conventional deadlift. The conventional deadlift is one of the greatest power and strength development movements for the entire body, especially the posterior chain. And we're going to go through conventional versus the sumo. We're not talking about the sumo deadlift because we're all conventional pullers, and conventional pullers are the best pullers. But the main difference between the two lifts, so you don't get confused, conventional deadlift, arms are outside of the knees. Sumo deadlift, knees are outside of the arms. With that being said, Clark is going to talk a little bit more about what the conventional deadlift is and what it targets.
Yes, I am, Luke. Thank you very much. First off, many of you guys have already performed the deadlift probably. So you know that this lift is primarily targeting hamstrings, glutes, your spinal erectors, and also your grip strength is also a big portion of that. But it is really a whole body exercise because it gets the core involved and your whole body. So we're doing this to promote maximum force output through your posterior chain, really trying to develop that strength and power while promoting joint stability. And all this transfers very easily into the field of athletics.
So what we're going to do is walk through the starting and finishing position and have Clark here basically demonstrate why I walk through these steps. So one of the first things I'm going to ask him to do is to walk up to the bar and make sure his legs are shoulder width apart, and then he's going to make sure that his legs are close to the bar. The other thing is when he's performing this movement, he wants to have either a switch grip or a pronated grip so that he can have better movement and control of the bar. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go ahead and bend down, keep your knees bent, be at roughly about a 90 degree position there. All right. He's going to keep his shoulders rounded back and keep his back straight while also pulling through the bar real close to his leg. He's not going to basically have the bar all the way out front. So then I'm going to ask him to go ahead and bring the bar up, straighten the knees and the hips, pause at the top, control all the way through the bottom, so go ahead and lower down the same position, and that would be the conventional deadlift. But some highlights to notice is those things that we talked about, but the other thing too is, I'm going to have you do another rep. His eyes are straight forward and the chest is partially forward as well, all right? His hands and feet remain unchanged from the position. He's holding that area down. His chest should be kind of like up, and we kind of say proud, like forward and out with the shoulders back versus kind of rounded forward and looking down. He's also driving the weight through his heels to make sure that he's pushing through and to hit those areas that we're trying to target in the conventional deadlift. Altogether, the hips are between his shoulders so that as he drives up, he's in the proper position. So go ahead and pull forward and up, right? Notice chest is proud, all the positions are held down, and once he begins pulling from the bar, he's pushing through the heels and his hips are maintained together, all right? And the back will follow. He's not initiating the movement with his back, he's initiating the movements through the legs.
So jumping into some do's and don'ts of the conventional deadlift, one of the worst things you can do and one of the most common mistakes people have is called cat backing. And that's when the athlete begins driving with the hips and the legs and has the back follow too late and rounds their back, just as Clark did there. You don't want to do that, and we're not going to make Clark do it again. But cat backing is just the rounding of the upper back. And the way we combat that is by having that proud chest Gio talked about. You roll your shoulders back and then you drive up. The conventional deadlift is supposed to be done in one continuous motion. It is not a segmented lift. What that means is when Clark bends down to pick up the bar, he is driving through his heels using his knees and his hips simultaneously. Clark, go for it. Perfect. What he wouldn't do is drive his knees first and walk out his knees and then pull up. That's no good. We're just messing with Clark's lower back right now. We're not trying to do that. Next thing that I want to touch on is in relation to the grip. Gio mentioned switch grip versus pronated grip. Switch grip is when the athlete grips either side of the bar, one hand supinated, one hand pronated, in order to kind of pry the bar, and it just gives you a slightly better grip. Yep. Put it down.
Here's my grip.
And then pronated grip is just both hands over hands. I guess he can show you. Pronated grip. It's just a little bit harder to hold, but for some people it is more comfortable. Next we'll talk about the starting position of the hips being in between the knees and the shoulders. This puts you in the best most optimal position to perform the deadlift. If your hips are too low, it turns too much into almost a goblet squat, which is not what we're trying to do. And if your hips are too high, that turns you into an RDL or a stiff-legged deadlift, which is not what we're trying to do. So you want your hips in between the knees and the shoulders. A little advanced cue here, but it's called a slack pull. If Clark lifts up the bar, you can hear it go ting when it comes off the ground. That means there was slack in the bar. The slack pull is getting in position and then engaging your whole body right before the bar comes up. Did you hear that? Yes, you did. Boom. And then he would begin the lift and come right up. Therefore, it's one continuous movement. Like I said, he's not pulling, stopping, going. He's just engaging, staying tight, and going up. Another thing to touch on real quick is lifting gear. There's a bunch of different lifting gear out there that we could use to make this lift a little bit easier, a little bit more user-friendly. There's things such as lifting straps that take your grip out of the equation if that's the limiting factor. And then there is also powerlifting, deadlift, lifting belts, whatever you want to call them, that just help increase core stability and just overall pressure within the body just to make you more stable when you're lifting. Things such as deadlift socks or pants, which is a big thing for some people, especially beginners, because they're scared of scraping their shins when they pull, because when you pull, you're supposed to be touching your body almost the whole time and to ensure that the bar path is straight and tight to your body. And you typically want a pair of flat-soled shoes, so what Clark's wearing is not prime, what I'm wearing is not prime, what Gio's not wearing is not prime, but still gets the job done. Some people go barefoot. We don't encourage that just because it's a little unsafe on the platform and you don't want to squash a toe or something. One thing that we did not mention yet is how to control your breathing during this lift. So what you do is, before engaging, before beginning the lift, you take a big breath in, and then you lift, and you exhale at the top, and you put the bar down nicely.
The two modifications that we can make this conventional deadlift easier are the hex bar or trap bar, and then a barbell rack pull. In the first portion with the hex or trap bar, we're going to simulate that hex bar with the plates, since we don't have the hex bar here. And the biggest component of this is it changes the positions of the arm so that the individual performing the conventional deadlift is pushing more in a vertical line, but also keeping their chest a little more straight up versus a more flexed position. So simulating the hex bar, go ahead and drop down into that position we talked about earlier. His arms would be by his side and he would drive almost vertically and pull up for the hex bar. Because of that positioning for his chest and where his arms are at, he should find it easier to perform and kind of assist with the lift versus the barbell being with the weight onto the ground. So now with the rack pull, the big difference in this to make it easier is rather than Clark trying to pull this from the ground and go in a vertical position from the ground, he's already pre-positioned at either above or below his knee. That way he's not trying to pull from a bigger depth or height of movement, all right? So in this example, we use the chairs to pre-position the barbell, and then he's gonna do the same exact starting position and finishing position of the conventional deadlift, keeping in mind all the cues that we have mentioned, and he's gonna pull from just below the knee, and then going to the start position, pause, and then control on the way down, and then that's the performance of the rack pull.
One of the reasons that the rack pull is such a good learning tool for the deadlift is because it helps the lifter technically improve their hip hinging kinematics. That's the main action of the rack pull. They're starting from here, and all they're doing is driving their hips forward. It's as simple as that. And then repetition of this will just ensure that they know how to use their hips to perform a full-size deadlift.
All right, so now we're getting where the big dogs play. Exercise advancements for the deadlift. First, we're gonna start off with pulling from a deficit. So as you can see here, my boy Luke is standing on a platform. This platform can really just be anything that's off the ground. Obviously, the more advanced you get, you can raise your elevated platform as you progress. Luke's gonna go ahead and get down. He's gonna grab the bar. So we notice that Luke has to go down further to grab the bar, which means that he has to go further to complete the rep. This increases time under tension and is testing the movement over a bigger range of motion. So Luke, go ahead, load up for us. Very nice. Do one more for the people in the back to see. Yup. And you can drop the weight. So this is gonna make a conventional deadlift feel a lot easier because you're pulling over a shorter range of motion and less time and tension, so you can get that max PR up a little bit next time you try it. Alrighty. Okay, the next exercise advancement that we're going to talk about is the pause deadlift. I know earlier we talked about the deadlift being one continuous motion, but now we are going to actually segment it up. And we do this because people tend to be prone of not being able to complete a rep, whether they get stuck just below the knee or above the knee. This pause that we're going to do during this deadlift is going to be either at below the knee or above the knee, whichever position that the athlete struggles in more and tends to fail their reps on is where the pause is going to be at. Additionally, this pause can be implemented on the concentric phase of motion or the eccentric phase of motion. We really want to emphasize this on the eccentric portion because a lot of injuries with deadlifting occurs on the way down, and by implementing this pause we make sure that the athlete is maintaining the weight all the way down and not getting injured. So Luke's going to demonstrate here. Luke's a little boy at heart and he struggles getting the bar past that below the knee position, so that's where his pause is going to be at. He's going to hold it there for about a second and continue on, both in the going up and going down. There's the pause, up, and then back down, pause, down. Bingo.
If these simple steps, modifications, and advancements are followed, y'all should be pulling crazy weight in no time. Let's go.